And welcome back to the Financially Simple Experience. Over the last few episodes, we've been looking at this process that we walk clients through at Heritage Business Advisors to help them realize the current estimated value of their business, but more importantly, where their business could be. We call it value maximization planning. And I've shown you a couple of scenarios that we look at. In the last few episodes, we've talked about business attractiveness. And we've talked about exit readiness. How ready are you to exit your business? And we've looked at those two areas from a perspective of, do you have somebody on your team? Maybe it's an outside buyer, maybe it's an inside buyer, maybe it's venture capitalist, whomever it may be. How would they look at your business? In my recent book, and by the way, I'm holding it here in my hand. It's a copy of it, Your Baby's Ugly. If you haven't seen it yet, you can pick it up on Amazon or listen to it on Audible. But in my newest book, I often talk about the areas that we can focus on, the 8 key areas of business that we can focus on in order to drive the value of our companies. But it really doesn't matter unless we handle the home. And in the last 400 episodes of the Financially Simple Experience, I've often reached back and said, everything sets on personal financial planning. Of course, I'm a certified financial planner. I've been a certified financial planner for some time now, over 10 years, since 2000, I don't remember now, but it's been a while that I've been a planner. I've walked countless families through the basic financial planning process. And a few episodes ago, I spoke on what I believe a true financial planner is and outlined what I believe it needs to be a fiduciary and they need to be comprehensive in nature. But whenever we get to value growth, we have to also look at us personally. How ready are we, the business owner, to leave our business? Currently, in our company, we're helping about 4 business owners journey through the final stretch of exiting their business. All but one is having emotional struggles. All but one. In fact, one of the things I often coach is that as you go through the process of considering a transition of some sort in your business to the after transition period, there's a lot of emotions that come in play. We often consider it our baby, which is why I titled the book, Your Baby is Ugly. We often consider it our baby. But how would we rate ourselves on personal readiness, on personal exit readiness? So no matter where you're at in business, we know that we're going to leave our business at some point. Now, for you, it could be 5 years from now. It could be 10 years from now. It could be, I'm ready to get out now. I had a client yesterday said, Justin, find me a way out of the business. I'm done. But wherever you're at, there is a time that we need to take and do an assessment on where you are emotionally. So this next part of our value growth assessment deals with you, the business owner. And we're trying to assess how personally ready you are to exit the business. So questions will deal with emotional, for example. So here's a question that we would ask. Are you ready to exit the business now, or do you have a strong emotional attachment? That's a pretty simple question. Are you ready to leave now? Many people say, yeah, get me out of here. Some say, no. I still have years ahead of me, have blood, sweat, and tears. We may follow the question by saying, have you determined a time frame whenever you're ready to move on to the next chapter, next business opportunity, next thing in life? Some people say, yeah, yesterday. I heard somebody just yesterday say, man, get me out of this thing. I'd sell tomorrow. Or I have other clients who say, look, I'm 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Let's see what we can do over the next 15 years. So there's really it's not a timing perspective. It's where you're at emotionally at this point. One of the things that often comes about is legacy. Now, we use the term heritage in our business. I like the term heritage, but see, people recognize the term legacy. Is that an important factor to you? Do you want to see that your business continues for many, many, many years? Whenever I drive to Brunswick, Georgia to visit my family, inevitably I'm going to pass a truck driving down the road that says Golden Isles Landscape and Irrigation. I helped start that company. I got to tell you, my chest swells a little bit every time I see one of those trucks driving down the road. I know the owner of the company. He's a great dude. And it's like, but I helped start that. That's a little bit of a legacy for me. Have you considered, if you're thinking about your emotional state, have you considered your personal goals in leaving the business? Why are you leaving the business, and what are you going to do after you leave the business? I was asked this question recently. I think I've mentioned on the podcast in the past, but the question was, if you had unlimited time and unlimited resources, what would you do tomorrow that you're not currently doing today? That's a powerful question, one that if we candidly think about it, it could leave us in a point of sleepless nights. Now, one of the things that I value deeply, and I just don't, this isn't lip service for me, for the people who truly, truly know me, this is a big deal. I value my team. The people that I work with day in, day out, I'm telling you, friends, they are rock stars. These are good folk. They have attitudes that I can only aspire to have. They have can-do attitudes. Have you thought about what happens as you move from the business or through the transition? What's it going to do with those relationships? Is your team going to feel abandoned? And they're like, no, they want me gone. Maybe that's the case. We're working with a client right now. I was like, no, my team just wants me gone. What about suppliers and vendors? Are you going to break any relationships there that you maybe you're going to feel like you've lost a friendship? What about the brand? Heritage. Man, that's a big deal to me. What happens if somebody else takes the brand? Maybe it's a stock sale and they buy the brand of your company and it's mistreated. We're working with a company that's been in existence for 75 years. It's a service industry. They've got about 65 employees, and we're in the process of moving the family out of the business. Now, it's going to take 3 years for us to do this and get the biz family where they need to be and the business where it needs to be for maximum value. But imagine the family name on this business for 75 years. And you can imagine the emotion that's involved in that with the loyalty to dads and granddads in this particular business. What about power? Being a business owner, you have power. You have power to make decisions. You have influence. People look up to you. You walk in with that C on your title, on your business card. Yes, I'm the founder. I'm the CEO. And there's respect. What happens now if you're just, hey, I'm Justin? Can you deal with it? There's a status that comes about with it, and there's confidence levels. What is your motivating factors that drive you in life? Think about it outside the business. And that's hard for us as business owners to think about that, hey, one day we're not going to be a part of this business any longer. What is our true passion? Emily and I have talked about this frequently. If we were out of the business tomorrow, one of the things we'd like to do is do the great loop, get in a boat and drive from Tennessee all the way around to Maine and back using the international intercoastal waterways all around the panhandle of Florida, stop in the Florida Keys, just live on a boat and take the kids and just go have fun and do some school for about 4 months. But there's a lot of fears. What are the fears that we would have? And finally, why? Why do you want to get out of your business? That's not financial in nature. Those are touchy-feely type of conflicts that we end up having internally whenever we look at our particular business. But it's nonetheless the emotional questions that we need to start thinking about when we deal with business from a personal level. Then we flip over and we say, okay, let's talk about our personal finances. Now, this is not formal financial planning by no means. We may have one of the planners come on the show to actually talk through that. But what age are you exiting the business? So today I'm 42 or 3 years of age. If I were to exit right now, my kids are still in school. What would I do? If I were to retire today, using the sense of the word retire that all of us would recognize, there's only so much hunting and fishing I could do. I could farm a little bit more, but ultimately I would get bored. So there's this different mindset for me in my mid 40s than perhaps somebody in their late 60s. And they've got grandbabies. I was talking to a client this morning, mid 60s, got grandbabies, spend the night with him. And he's like, man, I hate the fact I got to get up and I've got to go to the work. He told me that this morning. I would rather stay at home, cook my grandbabies some sausage and eggs and play with them. But today I got to go to work. Well, the age question determines some different outcomes for us. Have you thought about if you sell your business in the next 5 years, 10 years, are you going to retire? Are you going to be self-employed? Are you going to do something else? Are you going to take up a contract? What is it you're going to do? And as we look at this, ultimately, the reason why we like financial planning first is because, as I mentioned in the past, normalization of the financial statements come into play. What is the minimum level of annual income I need to cover my lifestyle? Now, that's a tricky question. We talk about normalization of income and figuring out exactly how much we business owners spend through the business. For example, it's not uncommon for us to have our cell phones paid for by the business. Not uncommon. Maybe you're taking a trip to see a client and you're going to stay over an extra day and catch a movie somewhere, or a theater or a park or something. Not uncommon. Maybe you have various benefits that are paid by the company. Well, now if you're no longer a business owner, those expenses have to come out of your pocket. So how much money do we really need? And that's where financial planning comes into play. Because then once you throw in taxes and inflation and rates of return and time horizons and various things, that money, that value could be substantial. We covered this in detail in our wealth gap episode. We'll actually put a link in this blog post in the podcast to the wealth gap position, because that's what we're trying to determine is how much money do we need before we exit the company? And then what's the transition period? Could you go a period of time without any income whatsoever? Could you do that? Then if you could during a transition period, how much is your annual income need to cover your desired, not your current, but your desired lifestyle? So we talked about our expenses, but let's talk about our lifestyle. If you go into retirement, you're going to have more time on your hands, and so therefore you may travel more. Well, if you start another business, you may not have as much time on your hands, but you may need more capital to deploy another business. Then we run into just basic expenses. I'm looking into the future right now, and I'm saying my daughter will be getting married, going to college here in the next 5-10 years. That's going to be some expenses that are out of the norm. My boys will be in college. I'm talking about I'm going to have 12 years consecutively of college payments. That's out of the norm expenses that I currently don't have. So if retirement were to occur today or an exit were to occur today, how would I cover those expenses? What about medical expenses? Man, I know how costly this could be. What about education? Maybe you want to go and change courses 180 degrees. Remember, I sold a landscaping company years ago, and now I'm in the financial consulting company for business owners. That's an about face. So we have to look at what is our lifestyle, what is the monetary needs of our lifestyle if we were to exit our company. And again, you may say, Justin, I'm not exiting the company today. I understand. But these are nonetheless, we need to know the outcomes of these questions, or at least what are we thinking? If we don't know where we're going, then we really don't have a clear destination on how to get there. So we look at our personal planning and we start thinking, man, what are you going to do 2 years after you exit? What if you're required as part of your transition to work in the business for at least 2 years? What if that's required of you? Are you willing to do it? This is where the age question comes back into play. Practicality, we all say yes. But I got to tell you, there's something that happens when I start seeing grandbabies enter the scenes where the grandparent, typically in their early to late 60s, will start saying things like, I just want to be done. And if it costs me an extra $500,000, I don't want to sign a 2-year agreement. I've seen that more frequently, more recently than ever. So if we're looking 2 years after we sell, are we willing to work for the buyer for a period of 2 years or so? Have you done your personal tax plan? Now, I spend a lot of time talking about why you need to hire a razor sharp tax advisor, a razor sharp. I talk about it regularly. But whenever you get into exit planning, you say, okay, I'm ready to move out of my business in the next 10 years. There are sections in the code that if you don't plan properly can haunt you. It could drastically haunt you over a period of time. We're dealing with a case right now. The sellers want to sell. They have buyers in place. Because there was a C corporation less than 5 years ago, it's going to create some additional taxes that the sellers candidly didn't know. And so we're having to work with a tax attorney and a razor sharp CPA to help this seller in their personal tax plan. They're not going to get the value that they could have. Had they taken time 10 years earlier and began tax planning for this event, then the outcome would be different. Talk about, look, we need to do tax planning ongoing. This is why you need a planner and a certified public accountant who's tax savvy, not just form savvy, tax savvy. Do you have an estate plan in place? I've covered this in the podcast in the past, where you can give money to charities and that can help you on the time when it comes to sell your business. What about after you exit? What are you going to do? What if you were to be recruited by another company after you exit? Are there any things that you're going to exclude from the business? Maybe you have intellectual property. For example, I'm holding my book, Your Baby's Ugly, and we're in the process of getting this copywritten. I also holding the book in my hand, The Ultimate Sale. Both of these books I've written. I have the patent, I have the trademarks for The Ultimate Sale. I have it at home in my safe. Would I want to exclude that if I were going to sell my companies and perhaps use this for personal use? I don't know. Maybe I want to, we're in the process with Your Baby's Ugly right now to get it trademarked. I love looking at the book. It says Rick Edelman, who's the founder of Financial Engines, and he's written like 4 or 5 New York Times bestsellers. He said, this could be the best book on entrepreneurship I've ever read. I thought that was an impressive little statement he made, and he's got a whole little exegesis in the beginning of this book. And I read this, and I'm like, I put a lot of time, a lot of energy. Our team put a lot of time and energy into this book, but there's going to be some trademarks, some copyright on this particular book. Should I keep this? Should I keep it for myself, or should I sell the patents and trademarks, copyrights of my intellectual property across my whole company in this type of sale? What do I do with confidentiality? I mean, if I were going to sell today, would I tell the team? Me, more than likely. But what about you? Would you tell clients? At which point? How do you keep things confidential? Is there current business that you're going through right now that you just can't leave? Maybe you just started a major project. I've got a customer that we're just entering in this sales cycle. It's probably going to take us 2 years. We've been working on building the value of this company for the last 2 years, and we got about a 2-year sales cycle before we probably can exit the company. And we're looking into the future, and he's got some unfinished contracts that's going to require him to stay. And so if he were to sell at this particular point, yeah, he may get some revenue, but he's going to be tied into the business much longer than he wants to be. So think about unfinished business. What about the insurance coverage? Insurance coverage. You say, what does insurance have to do? Well, you want to make sure you have all the areas of your business properly covered for insurance purposes, because oftentimes what will happen is, depending on how you sell, you may get some normalization on insurance coverages, number one. Number two is you never know what could go wrong in a transition, and you may need some extra liability protection for you. Do you start telling your family? When do you start having discussions with your family, with your advisors or employees? See, there's a lot to think about in this term of preparing us personally for exit. And so when we look through this area and we start talking about personal planning that we have to do, and we start talking about our personal finances, and we start talking about how we are dealing with emotionally, friends, I'm going to implore you to consider these questions that I've just asked now. Don't wait until you have a potential buyer. Don't wait until you have somebody comes alongside and says, hey, I want your business. I've seen that happen a lot this year, 2021 as I'm recording this. A lot of money in the marketplace, and people are getting unsolicited offers left and right in business. How would you answer these? See, if you're truly growing your company, if you're truly growing the value of your company, remember, our values, our net worth is probably built up of mainly our business. If we're truly looking at our net worth statements properly, more than likely we do not have large investment accounts. More than likely, many business owners don't have large real estate portfolios. Truly, the 80% of our revenue could be our business. 80% of our net worth could be our business. So if we're looking at our net worth statement, doesn't it make sense to prepare our business for the maximum value it could be? Well, in order to do so, we have to take a step back and look at us personally. And so I hope that helps you. Emotions are going to play a big part. They're going to play a big part. Personal finances, it is a foundational issue that so many business owners overlook. There was a statistic done by the Exit Planning Institute back in 2009, I think it was, and it said that 75% of business owners do not have a written financial plan. Friends, if you don't have a written financial plan, you cannot have a written exit plan. They can't work. They got to work together. You try to do one without the other and you could get capsized. So think about this. Think about your emotions. Think about your personal finances. Think about your personal planning that you need to do within your own family. Are you ready? Next time, we're going to dive a little deeper as we continue to analyze what it is we do when we're beginning to work with a client on value maximization. Until next time, friends, y'all go out and make it a great day.